This backdrop is the site of an explosion that went off just a few days ago in this very gas station. If the population isn't able to fight and fend for itself, then no one else will be able to. And that's exactly what we're working on today.
In the late hours of August 30th, 2 car bombs exploded in the Gush Etzion area of Judea and Samaria, serving as yet another stark reminder of Iran's efforts to establish an eastern terrorist front against Israel, mirroring its model in Gaza and Lebanon. The IDF's summer camp operation in northern Samaria is a crucial preemptive strike against Iran's expanding terror network within our borders. This is an existential battle, and Israel must secure victory. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is My State, a program about current events, my belief in God, and my journey in the Holy Land. And behind me is the Gush Etzion Junction, where only last week a terrorist was neutralized after detonating a huge car bomb. Last week, a substantial IDF force supported by the Shin Bet initiated a significant operation targeting armed terrorist groups in northern Samaria and the Jordan Valley. The IDF Summer Camps operation is a proactive measure against a terrorist force established over the past 3 years by Iran with support from Hamas and the Islamic Jihad, designed to seize control of Judea and Samaria and revive suicide attacks within Israel. According to senior security officials, the mission aims to dismantle these terrorist battalions, destroy their infrastructure that include bomb-making labs, confiscate weapons, and capture wanted terrorists. Israeli security sources reported between 800 to 1,000 terrorists armed with weapons and explosives that were smuggled from Iran through the Jordanian border are active in these areas that you see behind me. They are known in security circles as Iran's terrorist army. Recently, these groups have intensified their use of explosive devices, establishing laboratories to manufacture large-scale explosives and suicide belts, which they deploy on roads used by security forces and Israeli citizens. To date, IDF operations have discovered a significant number of explosives, some weighing as much as 100 kilograms each. The IDF has neutralized several key terrorists, including Muhammad Jaber, the leader of the Islamic Jihad in Tulkarem, and Wissam Hazem, head of Hamas in Jenin. 2 IDF brigades supported by special forces and UAVs are actively involved in this operation. Another key reason the IDF launched this major operation is because the Palestinian Authority stopped fighting terrorist groups 3 years ago and now promotes terrorism through education, media, and financial support for the terrorists. Israel's security establishment fears that the unpopular Palestinian Authority's potential collapse could lead its armed forces to join Iran's terrorist network, turning their weapons against the IDF and attacking Israeli communities. I'm meeting with our very own Mati Shoshani, who served 7.5 months since the beginning of this war in this area, Gush Etzion, where the recent terror bomb attacks took place. Hey, Mati.
Shalom, Yair. Good to see you.
Good to see you again. You know, I think, more than me about this location because you spent 7.5 months
I would hope so.
as an IDF officer defending this area here in the Gush. Maybe can you tell us where we are?
We're in Gush Etzion, which is south of Jerusalem. We are on the main artery, the north-south artery, all the way from Beersheba in southern Israel, all the way to northern Israel to the tip of Samaria.
Yeah.
This is where we're standing. Hundreds of thousands of people, both Jews and Palestinians, travel on these routes every single day of the week, and this is where they chose to carry out an attack. This area heated up almost overnight. Last weekend, there were 2 explosive attacks, one in the gas station right next to us, and another one in a nearby community. And even in the week prior to that, there were a series of events that all indicate that Judea and Samaria are heating up very quickly.
It seems like, Iran understands that the Gaza Strip is, sealed off for more weapon smuggling, and it's time to invest their money, their efforts, and their weapons in Judea and Samaria.
You hit the nail on the head.
So Mati, let's go and see the gas station right next to us, where a suicide car attack exploded and caused damage to the
Let's do
roof.
it. We're
What
standing
happened?
at the site of one of the most recent explosive terrorist attacks in Judea and Samaria.
Yeah.
This backdrop is the site of an explosion that went off just a few days ago, where a bomb mounted on a car, instead of blowing up in the center of population, blew up alone on a Saturday night in this very gas station. And this is yet another example of how many miracles have happened in recent weeks, I guess, in bombs going off one after the other, killing or no one, or only the terrorist that was carrying them.
Yeah.
And this is event number 3 within just a little over a week. There were 2 explosions that night just a few days ago. One in this gas station that is in central Judea and the Gush Etzion junction. Another one just down the road from here. Several days before that, bomb that was put on a bus. And several days before that, a bombing attack in Tel Aviv.
Wow.
And
Busy week, huh?
Very busy week. And what you see is a direct attempt with money, with funding, with training to carry out high-level, high-casualty attacks. And one might say, and I would say this, that it is truly by God's grace and by a miracle that there were no civilian casualties.
But let me just emphasize on that, because you said that there was a bomb that attached to a bus. This bus was
full of kids.
filled with kids.
Yes, full of kids.
And it didn't explode.
Exactly.
Feels like it's impossible to defend our people here while being surrounded by all these Palestinian villages. But still, you have these almost success terror attack, but it was prevented by unknown technical error.
I don't think there's any question. God is always present and he's always active. And in Judea and Samaria, in the heartland of biblical Israel, more than ever at this time.
Definitely.
A lot of you have been asking in the comments, what can we do in order to practically bless Israel? Well, one way to help Israel and the Israeli families is through our sponsor today, Artza. You see, each Artza box delivered to your doorsteps is filled with flavors, scents, and craftsmanship made here in the Holy Land and also here in the northern part of Israel. This is how you can contribute to our effort. Go now to www.artzabox.com and receive fresh, original, handcrafted products. And not only that, you can now use our exclusive 10% discount on your Artza box subscription by entering the code TBNIL. Remember, it's a beautiful gift, it's a souvenir from the Holy Land, and most importantly, it's a blessing for Israel and for the people of Israel. So thank you.
I think we really need to step back in time to understand what happened here just a few days ago. When October 7th breaks out, I get called into reserves, as do you.
Yeah.
I'm called into this region. And up till that moment, there was this conception in the IDF and the civilian population here that life can be lived with the Palestinians here and just next door, the Jewish communities. And when October 7th happens, everyone suddenly wakes up to the fact that if the desire is there, there's the ability from the hostile population that exists in Hamas cells and many other terrorist organizations to break into Jewish communities and massacre Jews in this area.
The same as happened in October 7th.
Exactly.
It can happen here also.
Yes, and the IDF wakes up to that moment. I was part of that, where we suddenly realized that we have to completely shift the perception of safety and the concept of how you defend communities. And the IDF has responded and changed its philosophy of defense in Judea and Samaria, and also taken a much more proactive approach towards the Palestinian terrorist population in engaging them within their villages or cities and not waiting for them to come out into the Jewish communities.
Yes, the IDF is conducting surgical operations in order to root out these terror cells when they're still in their preparation stages before they conduct the attacks.
Judea and Samaria has remained quiet and mostly peaceful from the beginning of the October 7th war up till now, not because people were not trying to carry out terrorist attacks. The IDF put a huge amount of resources and manpower into this area to keep the safety of the population at a high level and to prevent terrorist attacks, and it worked. The number of terrorist attacks during a war has decreased compared to the previous 12 months. So Judea and Samaria, for the greatest part of this last year, has been a success story for the IDF playing defense.
It looks like now that Iran is trying to change this.
Always, yes.
I mean, and to invest its effort here in Judea and Samaria by smuggling weapons through Jordan, by inciting the population here and causing more trouble in this
Exactly.
area.
The IDF and the government always want to keep Judea and Samaria as a secondary front. Keep things quiet, keep a lid on everything.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the Iranians, Hamas, Hezbollah, they want to do the exact opposite. Create as many fronts as they can to stretch our defense thin, to stretch our energy thin, so we're having to fight on many different fronts.
And the difference here is that there is no fence separating us from them. It's all combined.
Exactly, and that's the complexity of Judea and Samaria. Judea and Samaria, unlike Lebanon, unlike Hamas and Gaza, there is no clean borderline. You drive literally hundreds of meters and you go between a Jewish community and you go between a Palestinian community. And those two communities are oftentimes at odds with each other. There's a fence, there's security parameters. And when you boil everything down, you have to have an incredible amount of intelligence, military presence, observation, and then a strong civilian population in this area to prevent terrorist acts from being carried out.
Yeah, and I think that now you mentioned the strong civilian presence. And that means that the civilians need to take part in the security establishment and defending themselves, because civilians that live here are the first line of defense.
Exactly.
And in order to do that, the government of Israel had made it easier for Israeli civilians to carry firearms, like both of us.
Exactly.
I mean, I just applied after October 7th.
One of the big takeaways from the October 7th attack by Hamas was the civilian population must have the ability to defend itself at least for the first couple hours.
Exactly.
And especially in an area like this where everything is so close, it literally could take 3 minutes to run from one village into the next Jewish community. The army, as big as it is, as trained as it is, as present as it is, it's not able to be everywhere at any given time. So civilian population has to be strong, it has to be trained, it has to be alert. And that's exactly our next stop. We're about to visit one of the best tactical training centers, both for counterterrorism and for defense in Israel, Caliber 3 in Gush Etzion.
Looking forward to it.
As am I.
כשאתה מושך אתה גם מתנגד עם הגוף ומפעיל קצת משקל, אז הרבה פעמים זה סוחף.
So Mati, how was it?
It's a constant reminder that you have to train on a regular basis.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think, visiting here in the firing range, you see the members of the communities in this area that have to train on a regular basis to keep their families and communities safe. The army is strong, the army is present. You need a strong population, you need an armed population to be able to protect itself. That's always the bottom line in this area.
As we confront this growing threat within our eastern borders, the importance of Operation Summer Camp is undeniable. However, it's clear that more decisive measures are required to stop the spread of Iran's terrorist network in Judea and Samaria and to prevent another armed intifada, which is a popular uprising. The IDF must reassess its rules of engagement when dealing with armed terrorists and address the growing threat of weapon smuggling from Jordan. Meanwhile, we continue to pray for the safety of all those affected by this evil and for our soldiers who are making the ultimate sacrifice to battle it.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.